This party's getting crazy. Let's rock.
Even 20 years later, Devil May Cry 3 still stands as one of the most iconic action games ever made. Its sharp foundational combat system outshines many of its contemporaries, and most modern titles too, in a way that makes you wonder why nothing since has truly captured its balance of freedom, challenge, and flow. There's a clarity to how it plays, a confidence in how little it holds your hand, and a trust in the player to take the tools it gives you and shape something uniquely your own. It's the kind of design that feels rare now, tight, expressive, and endlessly replayable. Beneath all the flair and spectacle, DMC3 tells a story about power, identity, and legacy that echoes classical epics like Paradise Lost or The Divine Comedy. It's loud, theatrical, and sometimes absurd, but also far more thoughtful than it first appears. Devil May Cry 3 might look like a product of a time long past, and in some ways, it is. But if you look past the rough edges, it still plays like the future. So the question is, should you play it? The game opens with a young, rough-edged Dante, very unrefined and a far cry from the seasoned devil hunter he'll eventually become. We see him lazily eating pizza in his office while casually brushing off a phone call from a potential customer. Shortly after, a mysterious man steps in. He speaks cryptically about Sparta, Dante's legendary demon father, and invites him to reclaim his birthright. In an instant, the man vanishes into thin air and the real welcoming party arrives. Demons crash the place and start tearing it apart. Clearly unbothered, Dante grabs his weapons and turns the chaos into a jolly little warm-up, giving way to one of the coolest cutscenes ever known to man. As the dust settles, something far more ominous happens. A massive tower, Temeni grew, erupts from the cityscape in the distance. Dante smiles, dusts himself off, and sets out to answer the call.
I can already tell. Looks like this is gonna be one hell of a party!
The story follows two brothers, Dante and Vergil, born of a human mother and a demonic father. After the death of their parents, their paths split in opposite directions. Dante hides from his past with sarcasm and a devil-may-care attitude, rejecting his demonic heritage and clinging to his humanity. Vergil, on the other hand, rejects weakness itself, believing it stems from the limitations of being human, and seeks power as a shield against vulnerability. What begins as a flashy, over-the-top action setup soon reveals itself as a personal, mythic conflict about legacy, grief, responsibility, and the true nature of strength. Our protagonist comes off as reckless, emotional, and explosively improvisational, but underneath all that bravado there's a man consumed by grief and depression. Despite this, Dante does not shy away from his humanity. Instead, he grows into it, finding true strength in weakness. His brother, by contrast, is cold and utterly consumed by the need to assert total control, a scarred person devoid of empathy for anyone but himself. Their very existence translates into an ideological duel between two worldviews. One resists what he could become, while the other fully embraces it. Seemingly caught between this sibling rivalry, we find Lady, a fully human character with no supernatural powers, just sheer resolve and a very deep grudge against demons. Introduced early on, she immediately stands out, not only for her combat skills, but also for the unresolved weight she carries deep inside. Her hatred runs wild and the game compels you to understand why. Lady serves as a stand-in for the human perspective, fighting her way through a world dominated by gods, monsters, and bloodlines. Her presence grounds the story, adding a raw, personal edge to its larger-than-life conflict and offering a stark contrast to every major player around her. Plus, she just looks badass as fuck. The events of the game take place entirely within and around Temmen-ni-Gru, the aforementioned demonic tower filled with secrets and echoes of a long-buried past. And while the whole experience is wrapped in anime-level theatrics, fucking airborne motorcycle sword fights, operatic monologues, and whatever the fuck this is, the emotional through line is surprisingly strong. Devil May Cry 3 doesn't waste time on exposition. It moves fast, staying focused and letting its fantastic characters speak through action, often literally. The journey upward through the tower ultimately becomes a descent into the brothers' fractured bond, revealing lots of interesting plot threads all throughout. It's not subtle per se, but it is smart, and it works because the narrative, much like its protagonist, never really pretends to be anything else. Without a shadow of a doubt, it got me completely hooked, all the way through. Devil May Cry 3 follows a classic, and now almost extinct, mission-based structure, reminiscent of another long-running series we often cover on this channel. You're not free to go wherever you want, but the game still offers occasional forks in the road to keep things interesting. Across 20 distinct missions, each varying in length and complexity, you'll explore the cursed halls of the Temmen-ni-Gru and surreal hellscapes, including somehow, the insides of a giant, flying demon whale named Leviathan. And despite how wild it all gets, the world feels surprisingly connected and thematically cohesive, which is admittedly no small feat. While some areas are accessed through cutscenes or magical portals, many locations are revisitable later, allowing for a light touch of reasonable backtracking. In that way, the game flirts with elements of Metroid or Castlevania design. Much simpler, of course, but the DNA is there. And there are always rewards for the curious, secret missions, health bar upgrades, and other hidden goodies tucked away for players who look. Structurally, though, the experience stays largely linear, and each mission breaks down into 3 primary gameplay moments: exploration and puzzle solving, combat encounters, and most notably, boss fights. During exploration, you'll often come across some riddles carved into statues, doorways, odd objects, and really, anything that just looks a little sus. They usually hint at what you're supposed to do next, not so cryptic that they'll stump you, but just vague enough to make you feel clever for cracking them. Some of these puzzles are pretty straightforward. Collect all the fragments of X to open Y, like the orichalcum, a mystical item broken into pieces and scattered across a few rooms, each guarded by different enemies. You'll need to reassemble it to power a mechanism and progress further. Others take a more elegant caveman approach, like smashing 2 giant stones together until they explode and reveal a hidden path, just so you can grab an item that opens yet another door. Then there are the occasional gimmicks, my favorite being the living chessboard fight. It's exactly what it sounds like. A full board of demonic chess pieces comes to life and attacks you, each with its own unique moveset. It's a load of fun, and there are so many creative ways of dispatching each piece that it never really gets stale. Also, honorable mention to the light guiding puzzle, which definitely feels like a nod to those old pipe rotation minigames, and yeah, it's surprisingly fun. All in all, none of these moments are truly brain-bending, but they do a great job of breaking up the action in unexpected ways. They give you a breather from all the demon slaying while adding even more personality to a game that's already overflowing with charm. You know what else it's overflowing with? An absolutely peak combat system. This is where Devil May Cry 3 really shines and firmly stands out as the genre-defining masterclass it truly is. You control Dante from a fixed-angle camera. That means, unlike in most modern action games, You don't control where the camera points. Instead, it shifts automatically as you move, cutting between predetermined angles. It's a bit of a holdover from the series' Resident Evil roots. Now, that might sound outdated, which, yeah, it kind of is, but thanks to smart level layouts and incredibly strong visual framing, it rarely gets in the way. In fact, I'd argue it actually works in the game's favor. DMC3 uses a clever under-the-hood system where enemies won't attack you from off-screen. So this fixed perspective ends up helping the player. It keeps the chaos readable where the action orbits Dante and the combat space stays clean and focused. Now, let's talk about what you can actually do. At any moment, Dante is equipped with a pair of both melee and ranged weapons that can be swapped on the fly during missions. Using his starting sword Rebellion and the PlayStation controller as the standard of reference, let's break down your basic toolset and see just how deep things can go. Your melee attacks are mapped to the triangle button by default. Press it once and you get a basic slash. If you press it repeatedly, you'll execute a basic sequence. For example, tapping triangle 3 times in quick succession gives you Combo A, a standard 3-hit slash combo with a finisher. But here's where it starts getting interesting. Timing these presses actually matters. If you delay the second swing, you'll trigger an alternate version of Combo A with radically different properties, resulting in Combo B. And it doesn't stop there. Most weapons also feature what are colloquially called crazy combos, special variations that activate when you mash the attack button at specific points in a combo chain. These are just as useful as they are flashy, often giving you extended reach, multi-hit coverage, or just raw crowd control. All of this is baked directly into Rebellion's core moveset, and the same goes for every other devil arm you pick up, from the speedy Cerberus, to the heavy-hitting Beowulf, and beyond. Each weapon comes packed with its own set of combo trees and timings to master. The depth ramps up further when you factor in unlockable skills. These are purchased using red orbs, the game's primary currency, which can be spent at divinity statues or before starting missions. Skills are tied to specific weapons and typically require directional inputs while locked on, which is done by holding R1. A few examples of Rebellion skills are Stinger, a fast, piercing lunge used to quickly close the distance between you and an enemy. High Time, a heavy slash that launches enemies upwards, setting the stage for aerial follow-ups. And Drive, a charged energy wave unleashed by holding triangle. You can store it indefinitely, as long as you don't switch weapons or release the button. Great for looking sick as fuck. Right now, we've only really painted a quarter of the picture. So let's pull back another layer and talk about the other half of Dante's arsenal, his guns. They are a bit more limited in scope compared to melee weapons, but they come with clearly equally defined strengths and weaknesses. Ebony and Ivory, the iconic twin pistols, don't deal much raw damage, but they excel at keeping enemies suspended mid-air and extending combos from a distance. The shotgun is the complete opposite. It has a very short range but hits like a truck, slamming enemies into walls and clearing mobs with ease. Then there's the weird stuff, like Artemis, a biomechanical laser gun that fires homing energy shots. You can even charge it up like Rebellion's Drive, opening up some truly unique combo opportunities. That's all well and good, but the real glue that holds everything together is the style system, which makes its debut here. At the start of every mission, or mid-level at a divinity statue, you pick one of 4 core combat styles, each mapped to the circle button, and each radically changing how you play. Trickster is all about mobility. Dash while invulnerable in any direction to dodge attacks, run along walls, even teleport toward your target. It's perfect for evasion and space control. Swordmaster upgrades your melee weapons with an entire extra list of skills. Shoot icicles with Cerberus, conjure fire tornadoes with Agni and Rudra, or just throw out a shoryuken. Fuck, while you're at it, have a Tatsumaki Senpokyaku too. Gunslinger does virtually the same as Swordmaster, except for your firearms. Every ranged weapon gets new over-the-top abilities. Ebony and Ivory unlock Twosome Time, an omnidirectional dual rapid fire, and Wild Stomp, which speaks for itself. While Artemis Sphere acts like a demonic Rasengan, eating enemies alive. And finally, Royal Guard, a style reserved for the absolute madmen. It lets you block every single attack in the game, if your timing is tight enough. Absorb enough hits and you can unleash it all in a devastating royal release, which just happens to be the single most damaging move in the entire game. High risk, absurd reward. But Royal Guard has more than meets the eye. It also functions as a way to cancel ongoing animations, letting you pull off otherwise impossible sequences, like infinitely stringing weapon combos, rapid firing the shotgun, or recovering quickly from sluggish moves. Each style earns experience the more you use it. Kill enemies while a style is active and you'll level it up, which means new moves and even greater combo potential. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, there are 2 bonus styles you get later in the game through boss fights. Quicksilver lets you literally slow down time, turning enemies into little more than practice dummies. And Doppelganger allows you to summon a shadow clone of Dante mirroring all your inputs in real time. These 2 don't level up like the others, but they're powerful tools with high creative potential of their own. Yet, buried beneath everything we've covered so far is one deceptively simple ability that, without exaggeration, might be the single most important mechanic in the entire game. Enemy step. At first glance it's quite simple. You just need to press the jump button once you're directly above an enemy and Dante will vault off of them in midair. But that tiny, inconspicuous movement is the key to drawing out the combat's full potential. Enemy step resets your air momentum, lets you reposition instantly, and most importantly, refreshes all of your aerial options. Normally, most aerial attacks can only be used once per jump. But enemy step bypasses this limit. Do an air attack, step off an enemy and now you can do it again. Hit, step, repeat. Which leads us straight into the real magical concept, jump canceling. Jump canceling is when you use enemy step to interrupt an attack's animation mid-swing. You skip the recovery period and immediately regain control. That means you can chain together moves that were never meant to connect under normal circumstances. Using Rebellion's aerial rave as a simple demonstration of what you can achieve. Step, repeat. When all is said and done, everything else, the weapons, the styles, the flashy moves, they're the finishing touches. Jump canceling is what gives Devil May Cry 3 its soul. It's what elevates it from a stylish action game into a monolithic achievement that will, most certainly, forever stand the test of time. I know at this point it's getting ridiculous, but we haven't even mentioned Devil Trigger, Dante's demon form transformation. When activated it amps up everything. You deal more damage, move faster, and regenerate health over time. And as you might have guessed, there are DT exclusive skills too. One of the most badass being Air Raid, which lets you glide gracefully while raining down lightning like some kind of gothic war god. Unsurprisingly, even something as banal as taunting feeds into the system. Besides cranking up your style rank, a successful taunt also builds your DT gauge. There's so much more to say, but in the spirit of keeping it concise, the key takeaway is this. Devil May Cry 3 is a celebration of mechanical freedom. The better you play, the cooler you look. The more you experiment, the more the game gives back. It's a feedback loop built entirely on execution-based expression. No 2 players will ever play Dante the same way, and that's exactly the point. One could say the most important aspect of any game is its ability to captivate the player just enough so that they can explore all the depth on offer through play. While I agree with this fully, I also find it reasonable to add another crucial observation. A game's depth is derived from how many interesting different ways there are to challenge the player, and most importantly how that challenge makes the player engage with the available solutions. Basically, a game can throw all the flashy mechanics in the world at you, but it doesn't mean shit if there aren't problems worth solving with them. Which leads us straight to DMC3's vibrant cast of unique problems, the enemies. The 7 hells are the game's primary foot soldiers, each representing one of the 7 deadly sins. More than just thematic window dressing, they serve as design-driven tutorials in disguise, subtly tuning the player's instincts through different attack patterns and behaviors. Obviously not all of them are created equal, and that's most definitely very intentional. Hell Gluttony and Hell Pride, for example, are the least threatening of the bunch. They move slowly, telegraph their attacks, and rarely pose a real threat even in numbers. They exist mostly as combo fodder, perfect for practicing juggles and getting used to the combat flow without much risk. In the early game, they teach you how to play with your food. Wraths, by comparison, carry around massive, pulsating organic sacs that detonate upon death, often taking you and nearby enemies with them. These wretched souls punish careless aggression, encouraging you to keep your spacing tight. Smart players quickly learn to keep their distance and manipulate wraths into exploding near other enemies, making them good teachers of ranged weapon utility. They control the crowd by blowing up the crowd for you. Then there's the Hell Sloth. True to their name, they don't really bother walking, they just teleport around. They vanish, reappear, fake you out, then unleash one very deliberate, high-damage scythe swing. But there's a catch, they always shout right before they're about to attack. Learning to react to that cue and keeping track of teleporting targets builds your rhythm reading and sharpens your situational awareness. It's a lesson in anticipation. Outside the 7 hells, the enemy roster gets even weirder. The Enigmas are essentially demonic snipers, creepy bow-wielding statues perched in high places. They don't flinch from ranged attacks thanks to their armor and will pepper you with arrows while you're busy styling on someone else. Left alone, they'll wreck your timing and interrupt your combos, and in this way they force you to prioritize. Do you finish the fight in front of you? Or break off to deal with a long-range threat? Enigmas exist to be assholes. Bloodgoyles, meanwhile, are a bit sneakier. They seem manageable at first, until you realize that striking them down with your sword splits them into even more bloodgoyles. The impatient player is quickly overwhelmed with the realization that sometimes, restraint is the most stylish option. Here you'll need to use your guns first to transform them back into brittle stone. Only then can you finally shatter them on your own terms. And then there's the Dullahan, a cursed suit of armor that throws mostly everything learnt so far into the bin. It shrugs off all kinds of attacks, and punishes aerial approaches with upward sword thrusts. The only solution is to flank it by dodge rolling, teleporting, slowing time, whatever it takes to get behind it and strike the glowing red gem in its spine. In essence, you need to give it some backshots. But getting there might prove harder than you think. Every enemy in DMC3 is a problem with a personality, created not just to be fought, but to be figured out. What I really appreciate is how even though you're never told how to deal with most of the enemies, somehow you always acquire that knowledge by yourself. I think that ultimately comes down to how they're designed, how they move, how they sound, and how they're shaped. Everything works in concert to steer your attention exactly where it needs to go. The game doesn't rely on conventional on-the-nose hints, it trusts that you'll notice and overcome. That kind of clarity doesn't happen by accident. It's the brainchild of developers who understand not just game mechanics, but how players think, using gameplay itself as the most valuable guide. This whole philosophy bleeds straight into the boss fights too, something that is crystal clear with Cerberus, who acts as the literal gatekeeper of the tower, and the player. And honestly, he's really good at being a gatekeeper. Maybe too good. It's when you reach Cerberus that the game stops letting you coast. If you've been getting by just bonking demons with Rebellion, I promise you, that ends here. Cerberus is a 3-headed ice beast and mechanically, he's incredibly stacked. Each of his heads takes a turn leading the fight as they rotate individually to the center of his body. In turn, each head has access to different attack patterns and abilities to command. That alone makes the fight feel constantly in flux. You'll have to contend with a long assortment of powerful lunges, giant frozen icicles, floor eruptions, sweeping claws, and lots of bites. No matter how you put it, Cerberus owns the space of the arena, whether you're up close, far away, on the ground, or in the air. If you stay still too long, you'll get punished pretty hard. And as if that wasn't enough, he starts the fight completely covered in ice armor. Especially around his heads, the frost buildup is thick, cutting your damage down to practically nothing until you chip it off, ideally from a distance using your guns. Break through it, and your sword can finally start doing real damage. Take it further and shatter the ice on his legs, and you can knock him to the ground from massive openings. There's even more depth if you look for it. Focus on a single head long enough, and you can knock it out entirely, removing its attacks from the rotation for the rest of the fight. The best part is that you're not forced into one correct way to handle him. Even on a fresh playthrough, before you've unlocked many skills or items, you've got choices. You can go trickster and capitalize on the enhanced survivability to play a war of attrition, or go swordmaster and stay aggressive, betting on raw damage to break through the frost, maybe even take out a head. Either way, the fight plays out completely differently. Cerberus teaches you something important. Bosses in this game aren't simple health bars to whittle down. There's nuance packed behind every move, and if you pay attention, you'll find options. He sets the tone for the rest of the game. From here on out, you need to start showing up with intent. I could dig into every boss fight in detail, but the main takeaway is this: there's always more than one way to approach these battles. The Agni and Rudra twins, much like Ornstein and Smo, test you by juggling two very different threats at once. You can time your parries perfectly to disarm them and deal massive damage, bait them into attacking each other by moving out of the way, Maybe chip at their HP slowly and simultaneously to avoid triggering their fused form. It's always your choice. Outliers, like Vergil, embody the purest form of self-conflict, your skills thrown back at you with lethal precision. Unlike foes that test your focus or split your attention, Vergil strips the fight down to its essence. He challenges your fundamentals again and again throughout the game, serving as a mirror and a measuring stick, there to ask, plainly and without mercy, "Are you good enough yet?" And if the answer is no, you'll be stuck there until it's a yes. All of this naturally feeds into one larger idea, a progression system that feels equal parts about getting stronger as it does about getting better. Devil May Cry 3 doesn't front-load its systems. You begin with the essentials, limited weapons, underdeveloped combat styles, no devil trigger, and just a handful of moves. It might almost feel like the game's holding back, but that restraint is intentional. It gives you space to breathe, to learn the basics without drowning in complexity. As you move forward, the possibilities start to widen. New weapons unlock, each with distinct combo trees. Your styles level up, each radically reshaping your moveset and exponentially expanding the sandbox. Eventually, by the mid-game, you will have reached a point where you're just as capable of controlling Dante as you are free to explore with all of his accumulated power. Right as you settle into that flow, the higher difficulties remix the experience altogether. In DMD, enemies have access to a devil trigger of their own, becoming more aggressive and far more resilient. Their stun values are modified, recovery timings shift, and suddenly your entire combo potential opens up in ways that weren't possible before. That rising difficulty isn't arbitrary either. It's matched by a constant internal metric, tightly woven into the game's very heartbeat in the form of the style ranking. Every move you make is judged in real time, rated from D to SSS based on a number of factors, like variety or momentum, but I just like to chalk it up to the rule of cool. Repeating moves, playing passively, or getting hit, they all drag your rank down. This is how the game nudges you toward variety and risk, and rewards you for keeping momentum alive. It's a system built to teach you how to play better, by making better play feel good. It also pays off in other ways. Higher style ranks lead to better mission grades, and more red orbs. Those orbs feed directly back into the progression treadmill, letting you unlock new moves, upgrade health, and extend your devil trigger, which in turn lets you style even harder. Playing stylishly isn't only a flex. Playing stylishly is an investment, but above all else, it's the de facto end goal. Truthfully, I'm sometimes shocked at how all these seemingly separate elements come together so seamlessly, because even the item economy reinforces these notions. You can heal with vital stars or wipe out a boss with holy water, but you'll sacrifice your mission rank. The game doesn't outright stop you, but it does quietly discourage taking the easy way out. It's chock full of subtle trade-offs that quietly reinforce the idea of style over anything else. By the time the credits roll, the enemy encounters will have taught you how to think, the bosses tested your creativity and limits, and, last but not least, the progression curve, that refused to hand you power without purpose, will have made you a master devil hunter. Progression in DMC3 isn't about simply engaging with more content. It isn't about the vanity of the power fantasy. It's about unlocking confident, true, and long-lasting player competence. Revisiting Devil May Cry 3 has been an absolute blast and reminded me why it remains one of my favorite pieces of media to this day. The deeper I dive into it, the more I realize my tastes in games aren't as scattered as I once thought. It shares a surprising number of ideas with titles I love: Armored Core, Metal Gear Rising, Nier, even Doom. Though these games seem worlds apart on the surface, they function very similarly when looked at under the microscope. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they've all influenced each other over time. Undoubtedly, much of that influence comes from cinema, given DMC3's masterful cinematography, which is as much a technical marvel as it is a storytelling tool. Every cutscene is immaculately executed, from the insane choreography that looks straight out of The Matrix and exaggerated voice delivery reminiscent of brilliant anime, to carefully crafted camera work that still manages to astonish, especially considering how long ago it came out. Cinema enthusiasts and aspiring filmmakers should study how the game uses its camera to elevate everything else, including its stunning Gothic architecture blended with a modern setting. Even in gameplay, brief moments of calm let you appreciate these stylistic details. I also have to mention the mission number Easter eggs tucked into the transitions between cutscenes and gameplay, a small detail that never stops rewarding observant eyes. The incredibly bold and confident direction shines through every aspect, from music and visuals to writing, making each moment feel purposeful and deeply engaging. The characters, the look, and the sound all leave a lasting impression, and the music itself is exceptional. You've been hearing the original soundtrack playing in the background throughout this video. Tracks like Divine Hate, Taste the Blood, and Devils Never Cry are standout pieces I keep on my daily playlist. That said, the game isn't without flaws. Most complaints are minor, but worth mentioning. The music, while fitting, remains static within missions and doesn't dynamically react to your style rank or gameplay intensity, a feature sorely missed in hindsight after playing DMC5. Some technical elements show their age, like the archaic saving system or the lack of a dedicated training room. Although style switching isn't available in the original release, that is, the ability to literally change styles during gameplay like in DMC4 and onwards, mods have since fixed this, and I highly recommend them to unlock DMC3's full potential. Visually, the fixed camera angles and dated graphics might not appeal to everyone, but personally, I find their charm irreplaceable. I wouldn't trade them for senseless 4K slop unless the game's spirit could be wholly preserved. I don't think there's much room for doubt after this video, but the question remains, should you play Devil May Cry 3? The answer is, fuck yes. It's perfect for fans of execution-heavy combat systems. Think Sekiro, Ninja Gaiden, or God of War. And it's essential for anyone who thrives on challenging skill-based gameplay that rewards creativity, movement shooters, or fighting games. For those willing to invest the time and effort, DMC3 offers a unique and rewarding experience that continues to inspire decades after its release. Even if you're more about entertaining plots or immersive world building, this game still stands tall as a worthy contender. I enthusiastically recommend Devil May Cry 3 as a must-play title for anyone who loves video games, and it gets the definitive Raven seal of approval. Go get it right now and have fun.